For today's show, we're going to start with Elizabeth April. And for those who are less familiar with what Elizabeth does, you will be if you watch this on a regular basis, but you will know that she is a remote viewer and she has a fantastic talent for this. And she is able to go into various parts. I mean, it's amazing what she's uncovered. Now, okay, for some people, you may not really believe that people can do remote view where they actually leave with their astral body and go to different places. And in her case, for this particular one, it comes from the GFL, the Galactic Federation meeting that she has every month on the Galactic Federation mothership, which again may sound really weird. And she speaks to extraterrestrials who are working to help humanity through this time of evolution, this shift of the ages, helping us to understand how powerful we are. And it really is enormously uplifting to hear what has to be said. But there's a lot of warning signs that come along the way, awareness points, if you like. And that's where we're going today with this. So that's what Elizabeth does. She's a real amazing starseed. And for those who can't really wrap their head around it, don't worry about it. Just listen to the words, listen to the wisdom, listen to how you would deem its authenticity when you listen to how this is put across. I think that's the important thing, and judge it for yourself. You know, we're all unique aspects of divine creation, and we're all diverse for a reason. So I think that is important to acknowledge and understand that different people's version of reality is their sovereign right. So we never ask you to believe what we believe. We just share our truth and leave you to determine that for yourself.
This is Bukh-Ta, this way. She is a Suri being, and they're super rare. I've only ever met her. They're kind of aquatic, as you can tell, and she is a hybrid biologist. She's actually one of the first beings that I met back in 2020. And so immediately, so I'm hovering outside of the ship, immediately I'm going right down into her laboratory. So she works in a laboratory, and she knows everything that there is to know about, especially humans and our hybrid biology. So immediately, so she's got these like beakers in front of her, and immediately she's talking about water. Now, if you know, and it's actually never really put it together, but she's an aquatic being. She talks about water often, and she usually talks about health often, health and water.
So, to summarize Bukh-Ta's initial slice of awareness to humanity, she drew our attention to the fact that there are shadowy entities that are creating synthetically produced low vibrational frequencies to mess with our harmonic alignment, to lower our vibrational frequency, affect our health, our thoughts, and this all influences the water that is in our bodies. However, there are also positive influences out there too from cosmic sources. Bukh-Ta explained that the important thing to appreciate is that our own mind can override any of these external frequencies. So in reality, through conscious awareness, we have the power by sending the right frequencies to the water in our cells, as this will determine the health of the cells themselves. And to alleviate any doubt as to the validity of this, we have cellular biologist extraordinaire, Dr. Bruce Lipton.
People say, okay, Bruce, you're studying cells in a plastic petri dish. What does that have to do with me? It doesn't make a difference to the cell if it's in a plastic dish or a skin dish. It still responds to environmental signals. So the environment is controlling the cells. But between the environment and the cells is the mind, and that does interpretation. If you open your eyes and see someone you love, your mind interprets love. And you release beautiful chemicals, dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin for bonding. If I take the chemicals from a brain that perceives love and put them into a plastic petri dish, the cells grow beautifully. If I take the chemicals from a brain that perceives fear, the cells stop growing and they start dying. So you're the one whose thoughts change the chemistry, and the chemistry controls the genetics. So all of a sudden, you're not a victim of your genes, you're the master of your genes.
So, we can choose to be consciously proactive in managing our cellular health and well-being through our intentions with gratitude, self-love, joy, kindness, and all those high-frequency emotions that mean that your life becomes blissful regardless of any shadowy skullduggery going on in the background. And wait for it, there is another collective advantage to be gained from this personal practice too. Bukh-Ta explained that when we urinate, our thoughts go back to the collective. So now we are helping to awaken the world around us, one pee at a time. How good is that? A high frequency bathroom break right there. And there was one last important message Bukh-Ta had to share, and for that one, we go back to Elizabeth for further GFL wisdom to guide humanity.
So she's scanning her body, right? And she's showing me that she's energetically scanning her body. And I'm like, okay, cool. You're scanning your body. What do you want us to know about that? And she said that right now in particular, we're doing a lot of release, energetic release and energetic purge, which, hey, have you been tired? Have you been having restless sleeps? Have you been nauseous? Have you have headaches? Have you had weird skin conditions? Have you had pains in your body? Great. You're just releasing some toxic shit. So she's like, okay, great. Tell us something we don't know. So I said to her, I said, okay, not everyone is sort of able to just tap into their energy field and do a little energy scan and be like, yep, it's all stuck in my left shoulder. So I say, can you be a little bit more practical? Like a lot of humans are way too distracted and like busy sort of fighting for their lives in this inflation economy to just pay for eggs, let alone freaking energetically scan their bodies. Sorry, I'm getting a little heated. Anyway, so she said that the most practical advice she can give us with energy scans is to target the area of our body that is in the most pain. She said, so she referenced pain, but I'll kind of follow that up with, if you have a weird eye twitch, if you have a weird skin rash in a certain area of your body, if you all of a sudden break out in a bunch of acne, like on your stomach or back or something, like it's clearly an area of your body that you're having issues, and it's clearly an area of your body that there's energy stuck, and then most likely energy releasing, especially with pain. It's just energy releasing. But if we resist the pain or we distract ourselves from the pain, we actually elongate the process of energetic release. So she said, pinpoint those areas, pinpoint the problem area. You don't have to like visually be able to tap into your auric field. Obviously that helps because you can go a lot deeper before the pain arises. You can find the issues. You can go seek out an energy healer for that as well if you so desire, but go to the most obvious spot in your body. And then she said, blast it with white light energy. So same thing. I sort of followed up with her and I said, you know, Bukh-Ta, like it's nice to just be like white light, but it's like, how did I don't know. I kind of pushed back and I was like, sometimes just blasting something and you're thinking that you're doing it with white light, like that's not enough. It's not practical. People can't connect to that or relate to that. Like, how would you once again make that more practical or applicable? And here's what she said, and this is amazing advice. I fucking love this advice. She said, find something, anything, one thing, okay, that you personally feel unconditional love for and extraordinarily grateful for. And I don't know why my example is always a blooming flower. I don't know why. And obviously I love my son and like I feel unconditional love towards him and like, you know, so many other aspects of my life, but there's something so non-ego, non-emotional, just sort of objectively beautiful and graceful and magical and perfect within the composition of a blooming flower. For me, I can easily find unconditional love and gratitude for that moment, that flower, that plant, taking that energy and just creating that. She said, pinpoint the frequency of unconditional love in that thing or that person or whatever, okay? Apply that same frequency and blast that frequency into the problem area of your body. Love it. Love it. I love that advice so, so much.
So, Bukh-Ta comes out with some really important and empowering information there. And it's interesting because, we know that from a cellular perspective or from a human body perspective, 60%, on average, 60% of our body is water. Okay. So when something messes with the frequency of the water that is in our body, you can understand how it creates, disharmony in the body structure and dis-ease in the body as well. So I think this is really important. So if there's energies out there that are really messing with this, and interestingly, I have a very specific example of this. In fact, I uploaded the video for this today. It's only literally a minute long, and it's in the description below. But it talks about 5G, okay, and the impact on water, and it just gives very specific evidence of how water changes when it's close to a 5G tower.
What we're seeing here is the crystallography of healthy spring water. What you'll notice are these kind of flower-like hexagons that are forming. They're indicative of spring water. Here is another example of the same spring water that was collected on a different day, and you'll notice that the same kind of patterns are forming. Now here we have the same spring water that you just saw that had sat next to a 5G cell tower for 15 minutes only. You can see how disordered it is structurally. In fact, in my opinion, it is completely destroyed.
And the water is effectively destroyed, right? So from being a living, conscious, like structured, coherent water, as you would find with rainwater and any water that's not been messed with and added chemicals to. Okay, so there's just one way. Okay, there are many ways in which they can lower the frequency, but we are the master of our genes. We are the master of the input that goes in. We have the ability to override all the dark agendas that's out there. So whether you believe it or not, this is kind of like this is science that's been around for quite a long time. Because one of the things that I'm very aware, actually, and this came, I think last Sunday, I got the latest newsletter from Faye Ward, who is one of our community who lives on the south coast of England, and she does healing, sound healings. She does a ladies' circle kind of thing for various healing methodologies that she exercises. And I noticed on the newsletter that, in fact, I'm going to put the image up to show you. Right. So this is Faye. This is her at a local primary school recently, where she got to talk about the Professor Masaru Emoto, who basically wrote this book, I believe, in the 1990s, which was about the hidden messages in the water. And he did various scientific experiments that showed that the water reacts to the frequency that goes into it. So, for instance, it can represent compassion, as you can see in that on the left-hand side of the top slides. Thank you, wisdom. It reflects it by changing the shape of the pattern of if you freeze the water. And again, that's what that 5G one talks to as well. That's one I just mentioned about the water. So this is not new, but at the same time, it's real. There are various things that really do mess with the structure of the water that is a big part of who you are. I mean, just imagine how important it is. Like for babies, they are 75% water. So if there is toxic water in the environment, because sometimes those 5G masts are actually on the side of water towers. So whatever water is coming out of those water towers is already kind of toxic. So it's important that we know that we have the power to change this. And it's also, we'll just shift that out of the way for now. Thank you, Faye. And oh, I was going to mention as well, I'm going to put the link to her newsletter in our newsletter tomorrow because I think it's good for people to actually read through the article that she's put in there because she talks about her own personal practice, which actually there's elements of that which I must admit I have incorporated already into my personal practice because, even if I'm having a cup of tea, I will spend time putting really positive energy into that cup of tea. Gratitude, love, so or the drink of water. Say, for instance, here I have my bottle here, which I use always constantly topping up. But that's the chalice well symbol there from over in Glastonbury. I think that helps. That's a high frequency because that's a vortex point on the planet, a very powerful vortex point. So I kind of like, and a lot of people, and Faye is one of them, and I know Aveen, the healer over in Northern Ireland. She has her bottle festooned with words of love, of joy, of, personal power, whatever it is, right? Because that actually does reflect in the water. Now, on a mainstream basis, that sounds like nonsense. But if you check out the work of Masaru Emoto, you will find how the scientist that he was as a professor proved beyond doubt that this is true. And you can even try it for yourself. It's not even that difficult. You take spring water, and I have spring water all the time. We also have on there a little light code device as well, which came from the Crystal Water Experience ladies that I interviewed maybe a year and a bit ago. Because they developed these light codes around this because they also realized that this was something that was needed. And they go around the country teaching all about this and empowering people to kind of educate others about how you can very easily move your water back into this structured and coherent form, which is really working well with your cells. But regardless, you can still bring out those positive emotions, that intent that is cleansing the cells, that is cleansing the water in the cells. And you'll find it will bring you better health. No longer will you have to worry about all this stuff out there that is being foisted on humanity. It's part of the test. It's part of the test because it's all about conscious awareness and taking ownership and being able to, bring your own, physicality into balance and into perfect harmony through the power of your own intentions. It sounds so simple that it sounds that it can't be true. But that's the thing. So many things about spiritual awakening is so simple. And it's actually trying to make things more complex that takes you off course.